Hello, buddy. Um, Let me just move this down to here. Right. I've been watching a, a few videos on YouTube about the expansion of the Chinese into Africa. And it's quite interesting. Um, I was talking about this subject with my brother a few months ago on whether it was a good thing. Would the Chinese be similar to Europeans in their behaviour? And he was really against it. He said, no, I'm not happy with them. They're just going to go in there and take everything they want and ship it back to China. Well, that is the look. That is the ultimate, you know, goal. Is what they are looking for in Africa is the resources that are there that the Chinese don't have. Um, and the point is that this is literally an open market for them. I mean, the reason why is because the rest of the world, the West, the Europeans, you know, America, they've gone into Africa, taken what they wanted, ravished it, abandoned it, did all the things that everybody knows that they've done, and then they're just not really interested in it, other than the oil that they need and a few other bits and pieces. I think in Congo, is it Congo? There's a part of Africa where there's a particular mineral that the mobile phone industry needs desperately, and they have the highest proportion of it, I think, anywhere in the world. And that's the reason why that region, or near that region, there's always the war, because as long as the government is unstable, they can keep the prices down, even though the price is high, and take out what they want. Whereas if the government was there proper, and there was a proper government in, they wouldn't be able to take out what they want to do. They'd have to take it. It would cost even more. So the Americans and the rest, constantly going and destabilize a country like the CIA does on a regular basis for the benefits of the Americans, the benefit of the West. They don't give a shit. They're not interested in helping develop Africa. They don't want to. It's important, really, to be honest with you, that Africa stays in the state that it is for the benefit of the West. The Chinese, on the other hand, yes, their purpose is to go in and take minerals and resources. But I think as well, they see there is a potential in Africa as a partner. And if they can help, especially sub-Saharan Africa, to build it up and to get it up to the same standards or similar standards to the Chinese, to where they are at the moment, they can take credit for that. They're looking at the long-term future. The West is not even looking at. They're not interested in Africa. But then, extraordinary, when Hillary Clinton was in her office, she made a statement. You better watch these Chinese, because you don't know what their agenda is. Can you imagine an American saying to African people, watch the Chinese? If anyone's got to watch anybody, African people need to watch the fucking Americans with their behaviour, because now that they're starting to see the Chinese are coming in, they're pissed. They're pissed. They don't want the Chinese to help Africa. They want Africa to be in perpetual shit. And the reason why? So they can take any resources they want at the cheapest. So if there is not good governments there, they can take whatever they want, even though it's a bit of a struggle, um, and they can take it at virtually any price they want. If the Chinese come in and help structurize Africa properly, okay, and it becomes similar in the way of the Chinese, because look at America, look at literally virtually every country in the world. The West is trying now its best to get into China, and China is stopping these countries, making them work very, very hard. Look at Google. Um, all these countries, Google, Apple, they're all banging on the door to get into China. They're begging to get into China. And I don't think they want the same situation of Africa becoming similar to China, where they would have to be banging on that door to get in and get at the resources and the get at the people like the Chinese. Because the Chinese are frustrating the West. They're frustrating them a lot of the time, and they don't like that. So that's why Hillary Clinton said, "Oh, watch out for those nasty Chinese, because they won't help Africa. They will. Yeah, their purpose isn't to get resources for their own people. Simple as that. That's what any country would do. Any country would do that. But the Chinese are also looking at the long term and saying, we want to be partners with you, with Africa, and we want our people to come to Africa and also be citizens of Africa and also be working and living there and to be expats and become a partnership." And I like that. I like that fact that the Chinese government is looking at. I hope that they make it easier for the Africans that want to go to China. Government makes it, policy to make it easier for, against discrimination and all that kind of business. So it's easier for them to work and live there. Because the Chinese in China do have a little bit of, well, from what I'm seeing and reading, there's been a few incidents here and there. But it's like everywhere in the world. African people go to Italy, some are being killed and shot there. African goes to Sweden, some of them are killed and shot there, and so on and so on. It's everywhere in the world. People are bastards. So you just have to, take every day as you can, and hopefully over time, the world will become closer, as with what the Chinese are trying to do, in saying, look, we're not gonna behave in the same way as the Europeans did. Come in, take everything that we want, do very little in Africa, and then once we finish, we can then up and leave. We will come into Africa, and we're gonna come in as partnerships. There's a video, one of the videos I'm watching, the one of the African contractors was saying that when the Europeans and the Americans or whatever come into Africa, they have this massive standoffish attitude to Africans. They don't really want to sort of muck in and get in with whereas the Chinese, they, first 2 or 3 days, bang, they start working with the Africans, start digging up the roads, start working with them, and just getting involved. And he said the Europeans could learn a thing or two from the Chinese on how they, can be more involved if they do go into Africa, and not be so standoffish, because of this constant, Africa is a cesspool of shit. Africa is this, Africa is that, malaria is this, AIDS is this, and all sorts of fucking nonsense that's going on. Africa is a beautiful country. That's first and foremost. And we need to support our country black people need to support the country across the world, especially Americans. The American black, I, you know something, I don't know if it's true or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if more American whites actually travel to America than the actual American African American travel to Africa. African Americans must really truly get off their backsides and go to Africa, and see Africa. When they get the money and the time, they should really go to Africa at least once in their life, and see the continent for themselves. Those that do go and experience the place, and it's good for them. But as for the African and Chinese cooperation in trying to help the help Africa to rise from where it is, I think it's a good thing. I heard a few years ago that Nigeria, they were going to try and, especially in Lagos, try and make a sort of Shanghai type of environment, really do the whole place up, redo it, clean it up, and make it a really shiny city. Now they're trying to do it's improving. Lagos is improving slowly. I think the roads are getting better slowly. But hopefully one day it will become like Shanghai, nice, tall, shiny buildings. Because what the Chinese have done in parts of China is fantastic. And I hope to go to China one day to have a look and see for myself, see the country for myself. And apparently there are a lot of Chinese that are going to Zambia. Is it Zambia? Yeah, Zambia. Is it Zambia? Yeah, I think it's Zambia. And doing trade there. So there's a lot of them coming into that country now, seeing it as an opportunity, a new opportunity. And I think the Chinese as well, the ordinary Chinese is also quite happy to leave China, because China's become very uber competitive, really, difficult to set up businesses because everybody's wanting to do business. Whereas if they've got an entrepreneurial mind anyway, and they go into somewhere like Zambia, which is a bit more easier for them to set up business, they're taking that opportunity. And then, maybe doing business back to China. So they go there, set up, and then do their business back to China. And I like the fact that many of them, especially the guys who are very difficult to bend and with their attitude, they go to Africa and then they assimilate and then they meet, they get married and have children. And that's a good thing, because we're all human beings. We've got to stop all this, we're all different races and all that kind of shit. We're all human. There are different human beings. They're not different races like they've come out from fucking out of space and landed on this planet. One from Mars, one from Jupiter, or whatever. We've all evolved from this planet. Whether the first human evolved out of Africa, or evolved out of Eastern Asia, or evolved out of Russia, it doesn't matter. The point is that it started on this earth. And so wherever man or woman first evolved from, they spread across the planet. That's the most important thing. It doesn't matter whether they came from Africa, whether they came from the UK, whether they came from South America or whatever. It's the important thing is that the human species is growing more and more year on year. I mean, there's quotations that, figures that Africa, at, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years or whatever it is, I think is it 1.2 billion or 2 billion, will eventually get up to 4 billion people. And hopefully by that time, most of those will be middle class Africans, who will have money and influence, and hopefully Africa will have a much more of a bigger say what goes on in the world, and not be classed as the poorest continent in the world. And if the Chinese have a hand and help Africa to go forward and become prosperous, this will help the Chinese, and that will be good for both countries in the long term, and that will leave the West, who traditionally took whatever they wanted out of Africa, basically out in the cold, like they are at the moment when dealing with trying to get more business in China from Western countries. So I mean, that's my take on it. I think in the long term, I think it's a good thing that the Chinese are going into Africa, helping to ultimately build, have a hand in building, new railways. Because to me, actually, it seems like they're the only ones that can really do it. They have the strength of body and mind to be able to, cope with some quite harsh conditions in Africa. The Chinese are able to be able to cope with that. That perhaps the Europeans are not able to, because they showed it before and they keep showing it now. So yes, I think it's a good thing ultimately, and whatever other reservations there are, the issues of integration and etc., the whole thing I think is a good thing, and I hope that the Chinese will help Africa prosper and move forward, because I mean, look at Nigeria, for instance. Since I think 2000, it's the music industry is starting to get recognised more and more. The movie industry has already recognised, especially across Africa and other parts of the world, and also finances wise, Nigeria is beginning to be known for a place of banks and financing. So Africa is showing glimpses that hopefully in the next 20-30 years it will become even more influential in the world, and rather than people running away, not wanting to go there, people will hopefully be wanting to run there, to go and live and to go and work there, and enjoy living in Africa. So, I mean, that's my take on it. I don't know what other people think. Thanks for listening.